you to Saving Our Oceans, the Case for Marine Spatial Planning, which has been organized by the French Embassy to Malaysia, the European Delegation to Malaysia, and of course, the Maritime Institute of Malaysia. So as you know, this event will last 2 days, well, 2 half days, with actually a keynote address and 2 roundtables each day, and we will have the same program tomorrow. So our objective overall is to foster new collaborations at a bilateral and at a regional level around ocean governance. So as you all know too, we have a very dense and exciting program both today and tomorrow. So I think we're going to move on and get started. First of all, we are going to start with the welcoming remarks of the officials who are being gracing us with their presence today. I would like to thank them for taking the time to be here with us right now. And we're going to start with His Excellency Michaelis Rocas, who is Ambassador and Head of the European Delegation to Malaysia. So please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon here in Malaysia and good morning to those participating from Europe. This is the third and final seminar that we are co-organizing with the French presidency of the Council of the European Union, which will end in a week when the Czech Republic will take over the presidency. And I want to sincerely thank our colleagues in the French embassy for the great cooperation throughout this semester, a true Team Europe effort. For the first 2 seminars were about maritime security and green transition. Today and tomorrow, we will discuss about ocean governance. All of these topics are priority areas of the European Union strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. And all 3 are of fundamental importance in our bilateral relationship to Malaysia. I would like to thank our partners in MIMA for the excellent cooperation in making this seminar possible. After the seminar on maritime security in March, this is our second major joint activity for this year, and I'm looking forward to many more in the years to come. Let me begin with a basic question, taking us back to why ocean governance matters. Why are oceans so fundamental for humankind? And excuse to the scientists who are and the academics that they are joining, but I will perhaps outline some elements that are crucial to understand the fundamental importance of oceans for humankind. Oceans are home to rich, fragile, and still largely unexplored biodiversity, which provides a variety of important ecosystem services. Oceans are essential for humankind as the ocean produces over half of the world's oxygen and absorbs 50 times more carbon dioxide than our atmosphere, which accounts around 25% of global CO emissions. Oceans regulate the climate and weather patterns as they cover 70% of the Earth's surface, where oceans help transport heat from the equator to the poles. Oceans are a source of nutritious and healthy food, as well as of medicine. Many medicinal products come from the oceans, including ingredients that they help fight cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, and heart disease. Furthermore, oceans are an engine for development. They bring economic benefits and are an important pathway for trade. The OECD estimates that ocean-based industries contribute roughly 1.3 trillion to global gross value added. Besides, oceans also create millions of jobs. According to the OECD reports, by 2030, ocean-based industries will employ more than 40 million people worldwide, where the biggest share of those jobs is likely to be in the fisheries sector, followed by tourism. The ocean economy is of a particular importance in developing countries, which are home to most of up to 3 billion people who rely on the sea for their livelihoods. With the world's population expected to reach 9 to 10 billion by 2050, oceans are under intense pressure for human activities as global competition for raw materials, food, water, and space will intensify. So thinking into all these factors, it's hardly surprising that the ocean governance is one of the 7 priority areas of the European Union strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. The strategy, which was launched in 2021, departs from the fact that the futures of EU and Indo-Pacific are inextricably linked, given the interdependence of their economies and the common challenges we are all facing. Around 40% of the EU's foreign trade passes through the waters of Malaysia, making stability in the region a shared concern and area of cooperation. The Indo-Pacific hosts major waterways that are vital of vital importance to EU trade, including the Malacca Straits, the South China Sea, and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Indo-Pacific and Europe account for 70% of the global trade in goods and services and over 60% of foreign direct investment flows. Trade exchanges between the Indo-Pacific and Europe are higher than between any other geographical region in the world, with annual trading reaching 1.5 trillion euros in 2019. The region is the second largest destination of EU exports and is home to 4 of the EU's 10 biggest trading partners. But geopolitical competition is intensifying in the Indo-Pacific, creating significant strains on trade and supply chains, as well as in technological, political, and security areas. Therefore, the European Union's enhanced engagement in the region aims at supporting a free and open Indo-Pacific while building strong and lasting partnerships, especially with ASEAN, which we put at the center of our strategy. In this backdrop, we want to strengthen ocean governance in the region in full compliance with the international law, and in particular, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas. We want to increase the EU support for Pacific countries' fisheries management and control systems, the fight against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and implement sustainable fisheries partnerships agreements. International ocean governance is about managing the world oceans on their resources and their resources together so that they are healthy and productive for the benefit of current and future generations. We will bring also marine spatial planning. It is a crucial instrument in these efforts, allocating areas for human activities in order to ensure that social, economic, environmental objectives are achieved in an efficient, safe, and sustainable manner. Just to underline the need, oceans are highly dynamic and interconnected. Around 2/3 of the world's oceans are areas beyond the natural jurisdiction of states. Their specific characteristics and status imply a shared responsibility and the need to cooperate and coordinate across boundaries and borders to take meaningful action. So in 2016, the European Union launched a joint communication on international ocean governance. It is a vast agenda for the future of our oceans, specifying 50 actions for safe, secure, clean, and sustainably managed oceans in Europe and around the world in 3 policy pillars. And I will only mention that, not the 50 actions. First is strengthening the international framework for governing the oceans. Second is pressure on oceans and seas and creating the conditions for a sustainable blue economy. And third, international ocean research and data. So the joint communication is an integral part of the European Union's response to the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, in particular, Sustainable Development Goal 14, to conserve and sustainably use the oceans and seas and maritime resources. And it also contributes to our green laws, what we call the European Green Deal. So in the current context of European Green Deal, the European Union seeks to build on the fact that healthy oceans are a precondition for a thriving blue economy. Pollution, overfishing, and habitat destruction, coupled with the effects of climate change, all threaten marine biodiversity that the blue economy depends on. Therefore, we must change course and develop a sustainable blue economy where environmental protection and economic activities go hand in hand. More concretely, the European Commission has set itself an ambitious agenda for blue economy within the European Union. We want to achieve objectives of climate neutrality and zero pollution. We want to switch to circular economy and reduce pollution. We want to preserve biodiversity and invest in nature. We want to support climate adaptation and coastal resilience. And we want to ensure sustainable food production and improve the management of space of the sea. So let me conclude by again highlighting our mutual interest here in Malaysia and in the EU in sustainable ocean governance. I have mentioned before at the beginning of my speech the impressive figure that around 40% of the European Union's maritime trade passes through Malaysian waters. However, the need for sustainable ocean governance goes even deeper. The oceans linking Europe and the Indo-Pacific are vital, valuable, but also vulnerable. We have to treat them accordingly as basic preconditions for human existence. So I highly welcome this initiative to address very concrete and specific issues in engaging discussions among experts. I wish to all these coming 2 days a fruitful exchange, engaging discussions and new constructive connections between Europe, Malaysia, and Southeast Asia for the good of our oceans. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. So right now, we were planning on having our ambassador, Roland Galahag, address you right now. So he's not, he wasn't available, but this event was very important to him. So he recorded a video, and I think we are ready to play it right now. Is that okay, Cheryl? Thank you so much. So let's listen to our ambassador, Roland Galahag.
Good morning, Selamat pagi, bonjour. I'm here at Aquaria KLCC in Kuala Lumpur, a wonderful place to learn about the world of oceans and to marvel at the wonders of nature, but also very much a world currently threatened and a world which we cannot confine to museums. Oceans are literally vital for our planet. They are our lungs and generate 50% of the oxygen that we use. They provide us with livelihood and provide food to an estimated 3 billion people. They're also a main climate balancer and climate regulator. In short, oceans are a common good. Oceans, however, are very much threatened. They are threatened by overfishing. They are threatened by overexploitation of the seabed. They are threatened by plastic pollution. If nothing is done, there could be more plastic in the oceans than fish as early as 2050. So we need to act to rescue this common good of mankind, and we need to act together. Like Malaysia, France is a maritime country, and as such is particularly sensitive to what happens to the oceans. We have sovereign access to 5 oceans, the second largest economic exclusive zone, and a string of islands that span the world. So the oceans matter to us, which is why we have made of ocean governance our foremost priority in our national Indo-Pacific strategy, also in the EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Also why we organized the first ever One Ocean Summit in January earlier this year in Brest, France. And this is also why we are organizing today's seminar to foster cooperation between the EU and ASEAN and between Malaysia and France to join forces in our common fight for our common cause. In closing, I would like to thank our main partners, the EU delegation in Kuala Lumpur, the Maritime Institute of Malaysia, MIMA. I would also like to thank our speakers and panelists, and finally, thank all the participants who are with us today, both in Malaysia and Europe. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Voilà, those were the words that our ambassador Roland Galarrague wanted to share with us before this event. And so now, last but definitely not least, we would like to welcome Dr. Sabirin Jafar, who is Director General of the Maritime Institute of Malaysia, our key partner in this event. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Cheryl. His Excellency Michalis Rojas, Ambassador and Head of the EU Delegation to Malaysia. His Excellency Ambassador Olivier Pauver Darvaux, Ambassador of France for the Poles and Maritime Issues. His Excellency Mr. Roland Galarrague, Embassy of France in Malaysia. Esteemed moderators, speakers, and panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Maritime Institute of Malaysia, or MIMA, I welcome you to this seminar on enhancing the area of ocean governance of the EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific through dialogue. Thank you for joining us today in our continuous endeavor to address challenges and the sharing of perspectives on various topical areas in the Indo-Pacific region. In collaboration with the Embassy of France in Malaysia and the EU delegation to Malaysia. As an eminent maritime policy research institute, MIMA continues to address important issues on regional and international maritime affairs, including the Indo-Pacific. I am indeed honored to witness the growing support and participation that MIMA has received since we began addressing topical areas in the Indo-Pacific region, gaining much traction on the national, regional, and international levels. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing nations across the world continue to recover from the global unprecedented challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks to the technological advancement, we are still able to cater the participants from across the world today to discuss some of the most pertinent areas in ocean governance, including the development of sustainable blue economies and the application of marine spatial planning, or MSP, to cater for the need to address multiple challenges in the use and uses of the seas and oceans surrounding us. Ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia is strategically located this region in terms of maritime influence and ocean governance. We possess many valuable characteristics in terms of our geographical location and are indeed blessed with the attributes of a maritime nation. The sea surrounding us is now a host to many more activities than ever before. Ocean and coastal management have long ceased to be entirely concerned with fishing and navigation, but now also encompass the management of myriad of activities coexisting in the sea and the coastal areas. The increasingly complex structure of ocean uses demands changes in marine and coastal management objectives and approaches. This change has taken many different forms in many countries, but the approach is always intended to resolve conflicts among the different users of the sea, promote economic development, and protect the marine environment and coastal communities. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the ocean sector is crucial to the economy of nations through its resources and other ecosystem services that support the trade and industries, which require proper management and conservation strategies to achieve maximum economic, environmental, and social outcomes. Such a process will require participation by relevant stakeholders and the need to assess the resources required in terms of physical and human assets, investment and research, science and technological development, collaboration, and the review and formulation of policies. I envisage that today's seminar would provide a good platform and encouraging debates to explore further the adoption and implementation of marine spatial planning as a tool towards deriving ocean sustainability in Indo-Pacific's blue economy governance context. It is crucial that continuing cooperatives efforts are enforced on encouraging a better understanding of issues and challenges and promoting progress of a sustainable blue economy through related ocean governance initiatives such as this at the regional, national, and local levels. Ladies and gentlemen, it is hoped that deliberations from the sessions today and tomorrow will highlight the present understanding, challenges, as well as a feasible way forward in moving towards a blue economy for achieving sustainable development objectives. With that, I thank you for your participation and look forward to the volume and breadth of deliberation. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you success to the seminar. Sekian, terima kasih. Thank you, Marissa.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much to all of our officials for their welcoming remarks. Just wanted to mention that Ambassador Olivier Poivre-d'Arvor, Ambassador for the Poles and Maritime Affairs, couldn't make it this morning because of technical issues, but we're very happy to have his support. So now, please, I would like to ask you all to turn on your cameras for a few seconds and grace us with your best smiles and most wonderful smiles. We're just going to have a group picture before proceeding to the keynote address. So there you go. I can see all the cameras turning on. We're still missing a couple. Let us see all those amazing backdrops. Yes, still missing a couple. Could we have everyone, please? That would be amazing. Okay, well, I think MIMA is going to take care of the pictures. I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3 and smile. And let's do it one more time, just in case. 1, 2, 3 and smile. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for all our official participants for their welcoming remarks. We're not going to move on to our keynote address, which is going to be delivered by Dr. Jose Perez Agúndez from IFREMER. IFREMER is the National Institute for Ocean Science in France, and we are exceedingly happy to have them with us today. So just to introduce him very quickly, so Dr. Jose Perez Agúndez, he's a researcher in natural resources and environmental economics. He has been working at IFREMER for over 20 years in different areas and with different issues. His current research focuses on the sustainable development of aquaculture. In particular, its economic and social dimension, and on issues related to the socio-economic impacts of toxic algal blooms. He has been involved in setting up and conducting research projects in national and international contexts, and he is particularly interested in issues related to the governance of social ecological systems. So I think his keynote address is of crucial importance for us today, and we are all ears. The floor is yours, Jose.
So thank you very much, Valerie. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so can you see my screen, my presentation?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
We don't see it in full screen.
That's okay? Okay. So thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So my talk is about the marine spatial planning, and it's a very quick presentation of this tool in the framework, on the European framework, and in the French framework application as well. So, but before this, I was asked to make a very brief presentation of IFREMER. So which is the French Research Institute for the Exploitation of the Sea. So, so IFREMER has a diversity of missions. So firstly, IFREMER is enhancing knowledge of ocean science. It is also delivering expertise in support of public policies. And IFREMER is also innovating for the contribution of the blue growth. And finally, IFREMER is operating different national and European large-scale facilities, such as a French oceanographic fleet, Ergo, etc. So IFREMER is composed by 5 centers and 19 affiliated coastal stations, distributed in the metropolitan area, but also in overseas, in Pacific Center, Martinique, French Guiana, Reunion Islands, and New Caledonia. And so the IFREMER covers a broad range of research activities and expertise related to ocean issues. So relying on ocean dynamics, marine biodiversity, deep sea exploration, socioeconomic issues of maritime activities, etc., etc. So as mentioned, IFREMER is operating the French oceanographic fleet, and IFREMER is deeply involved in testing, so developing and testing facilities and experimental stations for the research and industry needs. And finally, IFREMER is also building and providing marine and coastal data portals for the oceanographic data needs, such as National Coriolis, European Copernicus, etc. So you can understand that IFREMER is a top international partner involved in a very large panel of bilateral cooperations and partnerships with also European partners mainly. So I will focus now in this issue, which is the topic today, marine spatial planning, and I will present very briefly so the political framework context in Europe, this implementation in France, so the involvement of marine sciences and research for mobilizing knowledge and expertise for the needs of the marine spatial planning. And also I will finish with mentioning some main challenges related to the marine spatial planning. So the political framework in Europe, so marine spatial planning is a tool for the implementation of the integrated marine policy in Europe, so which is the cross-cutting intersectoral policy whose objectives are both promoting blue growth and achieving a good environmental status defined by the EU MFSD, which is the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which is the environmental pillar of the integrated marine policy. And so the main objectives of marine spatial planning are supporting sustainable development of European maritime economy, and also facilitate cooperation between member states and between EU sectoral policies affecting oceans, seas, coastal areas, etc. This implementation is free to plan. Each member state is free to plan its own maritime activities, but respecting and implementing a minimum requirements, so such as taking account land-sea interactions, taking account environmental, economic, social, and safety aspects. So the MSP must respect the principles of the ecosystem approach. Also the coherence between MSP and other political frameworks. It is also important to ensure the stakeholders' involvement and to organize the use of the best available data for decision-making processes. So MSP also encourage cooperation with third countries and to ensure transboundary cooperation between member states. So there are mainly three key drivers of marine spatial planning, which are the economic development first. So the main objective is to support the development of maritime activities such as offshore energy, maritime transport, fishery and aquaculture sectors, tourism and the extraction of raw materials. But also it is important to take into consideration the importance to enhance the protection and improvement of the environment, including resilience to the impacts of climate change. And the third key important driver is governance. So it is important to take into account the relevant interactions between activities and users. And it is also a key issue to involve relevant authorities, stakeholders, and the public concerned by this planning. So the implementation of MSP in France relies on the national strategy of the sea and the coast. So in this framework, the objective is to set the main principles of the implementation of the marine spatial planning, and this is done through an eco-regional basis. And also the second objective is to achieve or maintain the good ecological status of marine waters. So this strategy is declined into this eco-regional basis through the eco-regional strategic plan. We see these plans are composed by two main components. So first there is the strategic component, which is made by the state-of-the-art synthesis, socioeconomics, the construction of socioeconomic objectives and objectives for environmental protection. And so the construction, the processes construction of the marine spatial planning. And the second component is the operational component, who is in charge of defining the socioeconomic objectives of monitoring, environmental monitoring program, and also to set the action plans to support the socioeconomic development and the environmental program of measures. So these plans are built under regionality strategy planning, so by different eco-region in France. And this is quite important. This is implemented into a joint implementation process between marine spatial planning and the marine environmental management. So this is in France. The strategy is to implement both marine spatial planning and marine strategy framework directive, both together to set the objective of sustainable development and environmental protection. So there is also important to involve stakeholders, expertise and scientists in this process. So it's important the mobilization of the existing knowledge, the multidisciplinary expertise, and also the provision of operational infrastructures for the support of this planning. And this is one example of the involvement of the framework for the implementation of the MSFD, which is structured by the ecosystem approach. The objective is to define a good ecological status through 11 descriptors, and there is a high involvement of scientists in the construction of this and the characterization of these structures, such as marine litter, contaminants, eutrophications, etc., etc. So the involvement of scientists is important for these different tasks and processes, such as scientific and technical coordination, in coordination of environmental objectives, so the coordination of goods, ecological status, and social economic analysis coordination. This is also important to be involved in scientific teams for thematic leaders and for monitoring coordination activities, but also for the construction and delivering information systems through databases, data portals, etc. All this involvement and information provided by sciences is important to deliver the proper and good information for the decision-making processes through this governance by the ministries, the water agencies, and regional administrations. And so, briefly, example of this contribution to the science by through the sextant geographical data infrastructure for the deployment of the MFSD Marine Framework Strategy Directive. So through the construction of data server, catalog of data, etc., the provision of this information to the planning processes. And this is just an example, an overview of this portal, sextant geographic data portal. So this is my last slide. So some main challenges of marine spatial planning. So spatial planning, marine spatial planning appears like a good tool for the implementation of the ecosystem approach, but we have to take into account the complexity to fully implement this marine spatial planning. And so in the literature, we can observe that there are many critics of how these strategies, in many cases, is based on sectoral strategies rather than holistic basis of integration management under an ecosystem approach. It is also very important and crucial to the good integration of stakeholders. So rather than top-down processes with a dominant disconnection of participatory platforms. So this is something that we have very take care for the proper implementation of marine spatial planning. So in some occasions, there are dominance of objectives based on development of the maritime economy and geopolitical factors. And it is important to consider environmental issues, but also social aspects. Social dimensions are very important in order to avoid which is commonly called the social acceptability issues. So all these processes in which there is a social opposition to decision-making processes, because there are some, if all these aspects are not properly considered in the implementation of the marine spatial planning. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jose Perez, for your intervention. I think it was exceedingly interesting and very informative for all of our colleagues and for the general public who is following us. Unfortunately, on this occasion, we don't have time for Q&As, but we hope to have the occasion of collaborating with you again very soon. Thank you very much. I think through your talk, well, we learned a lot of things, and we have seen that although MSP is kind of a popular and widespread approach, there is some level of controversy, and its proper implementation requires taking into account multiple factors, multiple issues, and also social aspects, which is very important. So that will allow me to make a little publicity page for our session tomorrow, because we are going to explore the implementation at a local scale and at a regional scale. So please follow us tomorrow too. But for now, we're going to be able to move on to our first roundtable, which is dedicated to MSP and its articulation with marine protected areas in terms of conservation. So we're very lucky to have all these participants that you can see on screen. And the moderator for this first roundtable will be Dr. Sharifa Nora. So she has more than 10 years of professional experience in bridging marine conservation, science, policy, and law in Europe and Asia Pacific. She worked for many years in Germany, among other institutions, with the Max Planck Institute. In 2017, she came back to Southeast Asia as the Deputy Executive Director of Program Services of the Coral Triangle Initiative on Coral Reefs, Fisheries, and Food Security, a multilateral organization. She was then based in Manado, North Sulawesi in Indonesia for 4 years, and she was practicing intergovernmental and marine diplomacy in regional marine conservation and management. Upon successful completion of this stint in Indonesia, she joined the University of Sabah here in Malaysia to teach international environmental law and ethics. Due to all her experience and extensive expertise, I think she's the ideal person to moderate this session. So with no further blah blah, I'm gonna give you the floor, Dr. Sharifa Nora, and I hope you all enjoyed this first roundtable.
Thank you very much, Valerie, for that warm introduction. So again, good morning, good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to session 1 with the topic of our marine spatial planning and marine protected areas effective for conservation. So, but first of all, I would like to thank the organizers and hosts for giving me the opportunity to moderate this timely and important webinar session. Considering the meeting of the Convention for Biological Diversity is currently taking place in Nairobi, Kenya, where the member parties delegates are negotiating the draft text for the new and ambitious global biodiversity framework. So probably tonight, actually, they will probably tackle the complicated draft text of Target 3, which currently has the percentage still in bracket for protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures, OBCMs. So moreover, it's important, the operative word here is effective management, to meet the 3 pillars of GBF: conservation, sustainable use, and benefit sharing. So indeed, marine spatial planning and marine protected area maybe could play a crucial role in the future. So we'll have to listen to our speakers and panelists. So this session 1, we'll have 2 great speakers who have 10 minutes each, and 2 great panelists who have 5 minutes for the verbal intervention, and this will be followed by a question and answer session. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Puri Kanel, whom I have been lucky enough to have met her and her colleague at the Manado Regional Secretariat Office of CTI a few years back. Ever since Dr. Puri Kanel completed her degree in biology in 1986, she has combined her professional activities in various fields of the biological sciences with her social commitment to environmental issues and in particular to nature conservation. She's currently the chair of MedPen, the Mediterranean Protected Areas Network. The main objective of this MedPen organization is to create, perpetuate, and operate a network of MPAs in this field. So she lectures in physiology at the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences of the Rovira e Virgili University. I hope I pronounced that right. So Dr. Purificación Kanel is the hardworking technical and team leader of the EU Ocean Governance Project. And her presentation topic will showcase Ocean Governance Project for marine protected areas. Dr. Puri Kanel, you have the floor, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Selamat petang. I think I said it correctly. That's all my Malayan. And thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is really a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see the presentation. Hopefully it will work well. Yeah. Can you see it well?
Yes, you can see it.
Yes, okay. Yeah, it moves the first one because sometimes when I start moving the slides is when there's some problem. Okay, so the EU Ocean Governance Project is a project targeting marine protected areas in 2 very different regions, but with a lot of similarities. One is the Atlantic area, and the other is the Southeast Asia area. Initially, the project was for 3 years long, but due to the pandemic that it didn't allow us to work, we extend for 1 more year, and it will end December 2023. I think that, what is important of the project is this objective to increase the European Union role as a global actor in international ocean governance, but by fostering this regional and international cooperation, targeting obviously the protection and restoration of marine and coastal ecosystems. So this really responds to the first words of the EU ambassador in Malaysia about the importance of this region also in Southeast Asia for Europe, but also how Europe can collaborate and promote a good governance that is important for everybody, not just for Europeans. So the project, you will see that it's operating with this basis of cooperation, and for us this is the key element. So it's led by a consortium led by GOPA, a German company with BNS, which is in Brussels. But the most important probably for you is the involvement of WWF, not only WWF Indonesia, which is the key partner for the overall project, but also we work very closely with WWF Malaysia and with WWF Philippines, because these 3 countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, are the main countries in which we are developing our action in the region. Let me just very briefly tell you that this is not exactly 100% new project. Is the heritage of a previous one that had two parts from 2016 and 2017, first 2 years, and then an extension of 1.5 years. Sorry, I put a wrong date here. And this transatlantic MPA network project allow the Commission to explore the possibilities to work through the marine protected areas as a key tool for ocean governance, and as a tool to create this transboundary cooperation in a large sense. You know, Europe had a long history of bilateral cooperation with many countries across the Atlantic, but this project was not about this bilateral, but was a project that what want is to just enhance cooperation with many different countries at the same time. So we did a first scoping study. I will not enter into the detail because it's not the focus today, but this scoping study allows us to identify in large sense what was the status of marine protected areas in this huge Atlantic region. And then we create this map, and then we select some key marine protected areas with good examples of management on 3 different topics. Some were very technical, such as coastal resilience, or marine mammals protection, and how the managers deal with the development of activities targeting these 2 objectives. And a third topic was taking advantage of the networks that the managers create, and how those networks are supporting this management, but also how they can cooperate in an international context to really help in the implementation of the targets of the Convention on Biological Diversity. At this time, we were talking mainly about Target 11, that consists on having this 10% of marine protected areas, not just designated, but also properly managed and really representative. So this target is very complex. We didn't achieve, even we are today in the negotiations for the 30%. And the role of the managers and the networks of managers is really relevant. With this background, then the Commission, the foreign policy instrument, which is the promoter of this project, launched this new ocean governance. And why is it called ocean governance? Well, because in fact, what we are doing here is addressing these governance issues at many different levels. When we talk about marine protected areas, we can talk about governance of those MPAs at the ground level, in the management activities, with the connections with the stakeholders around the MPAs, but we can talk also about national dimension, how those managers collaborate in the frame of an agency or a network, but also regional, between different countries and different networks, but also international. So when we address marine protected areas management, we can operate at many different levels of governance. So the project was created with 4 components. 3 of them are targeting Southeast Asia, and 2 are targeting the Atlantic. So there is a common one that target both. So the first component is working at this local dimension of the MPA governance, is how the managers of MPAs and the key actors work together to restore marine ecosystems. And this is targeting 3 specific sites. The idea is to show examples of good governance that allow to promote this kind of restoration at low cost and with a very high commitment of stakeholders. I'm going to talk a little bit later on that. The second one is the continuity of the exchanges we had in the Atlantic that serve as a model. And now we even increase, just to let you know, since this is a workshop promoted from France, that the French Biodiversity Agency has been one of our partners since the very beginning in the past transatlantic project. Then the component 3 aims to create exchanges. So this is another dimension of governance, how you use the knowledge that exists and promote the spread of this knowledge by connecting people from the Atlantic and people from Southeast Asia. And the 4 is promoting transboundary cooperation and regional cooperation in Southeast Asia to support the key conventions. So that in this case, the 30 by 30 will be one of our key objectives. So regarding the first component, we are, let me tell you that we are working especially at the Sulu-Sulawesi marine ecoregion, because we identify as a very important area and an area that may allow us to have good technical results, but also good cooperation results, because the countries are already working for a long time ago in regional institutions that allow them to have permanent exchanges. So the Coral Triangle Initiative, it's one example, but also the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity that has a larger extension. And those are the key regional partners we are working with them. So for this, we select, this was a long process. I'm going to be very fast because I don't have a lot of time. We select 3 sites. One in Malaysia, which is in Sabah, is the Tun Mustafa Park. Another one in Indonesia, which is Derawan Marine Protected Area. And another one in Balabac Island in Philippines. The first 2 are targeting the restoration of coral reefs, and the third one is targeting the restoration of mangroves. So in the first 2 cases, we had the first kickoff, the launch of this a few weeks ago during the Asia Parks Congress in Kota Kinabalu. And then we will have in few weeks the launch for Derawan, and the mangrove in Balabac is expected in August. In the case of Balabac, we are working as well with an indigenous community in the south of the island. So then we have this continuity of the transatlantic exchanges targeting the 3 topics on networking between the existing networks. Now we have more than 20 partners, even some outside Atlantic, also in the Pacific. And the idea is to connect also this networking dimension between networks with Southeast Asia, because this this may become a key intermediate structure for ocean governance worldwide. And this is the aim of also connecting a component 2 with component 3. And this component 3, let me tell you that we had already a first example of exchanges. It was a virtual exchange, and Dr. Nora helped us to organize this when she was at the Coral Triangle. And this was, despite being virtual, was very positive. We exchanged about all those topics you see here. Some of them were very technical, such marine turtles or marine mammals or resilience. Others were more strategic, providing examples of regional cooperation. And others were more looking at the future, how Southeast Asia could really do a good work in the future, creating those large protected areas with through regional cooperation. And the fourth one, that is aiming to promote this dialogue at regional level, it will consist finally in helping the region and supporting the region to discuss about the implementation, for instance, of the 30 by 30 target. Even if it's finally not 30%, we are still having problems to reach the 10%. So just supporting the countries on this. We are now preparing a first workshop that will take place in November, co-organizing with the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity to address how the countries can really take advantage of the many different tools to establish those marine protected areas, and how this can really revert in positive results for them, for the countries. And then we will organize a second one with CTI, probably targeting migratory corridors for marine mammals, and this is a way also to support the implementation of the Migratory Species Convention. So this is the resume of the project. And as you can see, despite there are many different entry points, at the end, what the project aims is to show that ocean governance for marine protected areas is something that must be addressed at all these different levels. All those different levels must be connected, and especially this huge distance between international conventions and ground activity with local stakeholders that is not always obvious for the people involved. So this is the aim, and showing good examples and enhancing networking to have a better management for those marine protected areas. So I stop here. Thank you for your attention, Terima kasih, and I will be ready to respond. I think I stay in the time you allow to me. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Puri, for that very comprehensive presentation on the EU Ocean Governance Project and the different levels of governance and the future intention to support Southeast Asia using tools for effective MPAs. So I think the questions will wait until all the other presenters would have presented. So next, I have the pleasure to introduce the second speaker. The second speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Tan Chun Hong, also known as James. He's a lecturer at the Faculty of Science and Marine Environment, University of Malaysia, Terengganu. He's a trained marine biologist with research focus on the benthic communities and has great interest in coral biology and ecology. He explores the reproduction of hard corals and records coral spawning events around Malaysia. And throughout his over 2 decades of research career, he has applied multiple methods to collect scientific data and develop diving protocols for scientific purposes, and he would like to share with the public. So his presentation today, he will showcase ecological connectivity in marine protected areas and network. So Dr. James, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharifah. Okay. Salam sejahtera. Good evening to everyone in Malaysia, and then good morning to the rest of the participants from other countries. Just let me share my screen. Right, just a moment. Okay. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen? Is that all right?
Yes, we can. Yes.
All right. Okay. So today, okay, before I start again, I would like to thank MIMA for the invitation, and then for the opportunity, to speak some of my project or things that I've been doing in Malaysia. A little bit on marine protected area, but mainly is on the biological and the ecological connectivity. Okay, and then to showcase what we can do, what we have actually in Malaysia. All right, and then okay, let me try to go to the next slide. All right, so before I actually so before I actually go into the connectivity part, I would like to give a bit of background of about the marine protected area in Malaysia. Okay, all right. So in this Southeast Asia context, there's Malaysia. We have the exclusive economic zone area of about 600,000 square kilometers, and then the estimated coral reef area in Malaysia is about 3,600 square kilometers. So in this area, we have predicted about or estimated about 550 hard coral species, and most of or large percentage of our coral cover is actually in Sabah area. Okay, in terms of the managing of our different marine protected area in Malaysia, so the first one that you can see over here is all these what we call Taman Laut or Marine Park that actually under the jurisdiction of the Department of Marine Park Malaysia. So we have several different marine park around Peninsula Malaysia and as well in the East Malaysia, the Labuan, and a total of 42 islands that have been gazetted as marine parks. And by marine parks over here, it means that there's a total no-take zone at the 2 nautical miles from the low astronomical type, covering a total area of about 2,486 square kilometers. So that is under the jurisdiction of Department of Fisheries Malaysia. And then if you go to the East Malaysia on Sabah, the Sabah Parks is actually the manager for the marine protected over there. For example, the Tunku Abdul Rahman Park, the Tun Sakaran Marine Park, and then also, of course, one of the largest marine protected area in Malaysia, the Tun Mustafa Park, which is about 1 million hectare. All right. And then if you go to Sarawak, okay, the manager for our Sarawak national parks, okay, is actually the Sarawak Forestry Corporation. Okay, we have this Luconia Shore, again, another one of the largest national park for Malaysia, okay, which is again about 1 million hectare. And then we also have this Miri Sibuti National Park, and then also the Talang Satang National Park. All right. And then apart from all this, government, top-down jurisdiction, we also have Reef Guardian Central Berhad. I guess, the only one, that managing our marine resources under this, what we call the Sugut Island Marine Conservation Area. I believe that Dr. Achi Chong is actually here as well. I would like also to take this opportunity to congratulate her and also the team, because the island just get the green list, as listed as green list. Okay, and then all right. So why I talk about all these marine protected areas in Malaysia? So when we look at all these different marine protected areas in Malaysia, okay, it's actually based on the reach of these coral reef in the diversity, and also the rest of these marine animals that stay within the coral reef ecosystem. Right, and apart from that, okay, we also see that with the establishment of this marine protected area, the area that outside the marine protected area, actually beneficial, okay, from this no-take zone, and as we know that it's because of one of the example is the spillover effect because of these marine protected areas. All right. And then when we look at an individual NPA that we have in Malaysia, okay, apart from they are enhance the fisheries resources within the NPA and also the outside NPA, but if you look at how can we actually advance in terms of this marine conservation effectiveness. So one of the things is actually to look at the marine protected areas network. So my network over here, it means 2 or more of these NPAs that are linked by the movement of any animals that travel in between them. All right. For example, it can be the connection of the movement of these pelagic larvae or any spores or any propagos that dispersed because of this ocean current. Okay, and also some of the larger animal, like some of the migrating juveniles or adult marine species, like the turtles, okay, and also the whales, and etc. and etc. All right. So this actually linked to when we talk about the connectivity. Okay, so or sometimes I call them the ecological spatial connectivity. So when we're talking about connectivity, there's 4 different types of connectivity. We have the population connectivity, which means the movement of the single species. Okay, from it could be from a different habitat, moving from a different habitat. All right, okay, or across the habitat. Okay, for example, from a coral reef area to mangrove and then back to the coral reef area. Okay, all right, and also could be directly move from one coral reef area to another coral reef area. Okay, so in terms of genetic connectivity, it's referring to basically the gene flow of the single species, all right, at the different spatial area. Okay, and then when we come to the community connectivity, okay, it refer to not one species, but more than one species that move at the different area. Okay, and then the last one is the ecosystem connectivity. Okay, so it's apart from the community, okay, connection, okay, it also involves, like the connection of energy and nutrient. Okay, so there's this 4 different level of connectivity that we are talking about. And today I would like to showcase, how we are actually, use one of the model, okay, to look at the population connectivity in the South China Sea. So because I'm a coral biology, so I work on coral reproduction. All right, so I use coral larvae as a model to express, to explore the habitat connectivity in the South China Sea. So when we, talking about coral larvae, they are one of the important habitat for marine organism, and we know that in Malaysia, there are 2 spawning period. One is early of the year, just after the northeast monsoon, around March and April, and then after that we have another season of coral spawning, which is end of the year, just before the monsoon. All right, so by knowing these 2 spawning season now, so we want to know after they spawn, so the larvae, where are they actually float to? All right, so when we look at the early life history cycles of our coral, we know that they actually started with the planktonic stages. This is the one that we are actually using as a model to try to test the connectivity, and then also we know that they have a long planktonic stages. Research has found that they can actually survive up to 100 days, staying at the sea, and then having dispersed by the ocean current. So by using the coral again as a model, and then after that we use some of the modeling software and look at the bathymetry and also the oceanography current flow within the South China Sea, and then we're looking at different source. So all these colors that you see over here, these are actually different source point from the marine protected areas. All right, for example, here on the top, on the figure on your right hand side, so that is on the top part is Pulau Redang, Pulau Perhentian, Pulau Bidong, and then over here we have Pulau Tioman over here, and also some of the islands on the East Malaysia. So by using the model, we are able to show that during the April, so after the spawn, so we simulate after they spawn, where are the larvae actually dispersed to? How are they actually connected with the rest of the area? It could be a submerged reef, or any oil and rig platform, for example. So if you look at after 30 days, they actually very constrained to the area. That means that there's the connectivity, but the connectivity actually stay within nearer adjacent area of them. So that is the case for Peninsular Malaysia. But if looking at the East Malaysia, they are quite dispersed. But still, not very far, but from coastal area a bit towards the offshore area. So that is the pattern in April. And then if we move forward to look at the pattern in September. All right, again, it's a similar pattern. They are quite constrained. That means that within 30 days, if after they spawn, they are not going to flow very far away from the original reef. All right, and then if you look at the longer term in terms of 100 days, again, you go to April, expected, they have a more dispersed, and then the dispersed, after 100 days, it can reach to, many, it could be crossed to other countries. It can be crossed into our continental shelf as well. All right, and then again, the last example that we have over here in the modeling is to look at the September pattern. Just before this northeast monsoon, they're actually more dispersed, for those coral larvae in the Peninsular Malaysia. More into the Riau region, and but for these coral larvae in the East Malaysia, again, they are quite constrained. That means that we are, at least in our modeling using the coral larvae, we have yet to see the connectivity from East Malaysia and also to the Peninsular Malaysia, or vice versa. But we are seeing a lot of short connectivity either within the island of this MPA, or even between the MPA. So it also again strengthened that we need to look at MPA networks, and then if we are going to increase the effectiveness of managing an MPA, okay, we have to not only looking at just one MPA itself, but also the MPA that adjacent with one another. All right. So in summary, okay, ecological connectivity is an important variable for advancing marine conservation effectiveness. Okay, especially if you want to look at the connectivity, between the MPA that is actually very close to each other. These are the case, for Malaysia. All right. However, various organisms need to be considered in what we call the connectivity due to different life history metrics. So in this case, okay, we use coral larvae. Okay, you can use fish larvae. All right, and also you can even model sponge, and there's many other organisms that you can use, as long as we have enough baseline data to actually to be used for these purposes. All right, and the last one they have is cross-institutional collaboration are crucial for this for the success of the protection and the conservation effort. Okay, again, if you look at this, the whole modeling that we have, it use a very high computational power, and also it require a different data set for this only for the whole South China Sea. Okay, if you're looking at the whole Coral Triangle region, if you're looking at the connectivity of different countries, I sure that we need more collaboration between the different institutional to make it a success. All right, so that's about it for my presentation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. James, for the enlightening presentation on the different kinds of connectivities and the importance of ecological spatial connectivity and the need for collaboration. So I think there will be a lot of questions, but again, please either write in the Q&A and we'll get to those later. So we have two panelists who are invited to make their verbal interventions. The first panelist, who's the first panelist? I think it's Dr. Vicky. So it's with pleasure that I introduce to you our first panelist, Dr. Vicky Chung, who is a project manager at the Blue Communities at the University of Plymouth, UK. With a background in science, geology, applied marine science, and PhD in genetic ecotoxicology, Dr. Vicky has over 15 years experience in event and project management in both the private and academic sectors. Prior to her current role of project manager, which was held previously at Plymouth Marine Lab, Vicky fulfilled the role of scientific coordinator for the Secretariat of the Partnership for Observation of the Global Oceans, or POGO, where she oversaw and coordinated numerous international research and capacity building programs. Many of these projects were in collaboration with scientists from all around the world, including those within the regions of Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, Indian subcontinent, and Southeast Asia. Earlier in her career, Vicky also conducted lab research at the University of Plymouth, investigating the biological effects of contaminants, or ecotoxicology, using biomarkers in marine invertebrates, and delivered lectures and practical sessions to undergrad and postgrad students. So Dr. Vicky Chung, you have 5 minutes for your intervention. The floor is yours. Thank you. Dr. Vicky, are you here?
We could barely hear you, actually.
Sorry, is Dr. Vicky here?
Me now?
Ah, yes, okay, so yeah.
Apologies, is that microphone working now?
Yes.
Bonjour à tous, selamat petang, good morning, good afternoon to you all. Many thanks to Dr. Nora for the introduction and to the Maritime Institute of Malaysia for inviting us to contribute towards this dialogue for this event. So as the project manager for the Blue Communities project, I have been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with colleagues across Southeast Asia. The Blue Communities project was funded from the UK government's Global Challenges Research Fund, where over 4.5 years, our work has focused around 4 case study sites in Southeast Asia, the Pulau Cham Hoyan Biosphere Reserve in Vietnam, Palawan Biosphere Reserve in the Philippines, Takabonerata Kepulauan Selayar Biosphere Reserve in Indonesia, and Tun Mustafa Park in Sabah in Malaysia. Each of these sites have some governance and protection under their designation, either as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve or gazetted with marine park status. Through the collaborations between our academic researchers from our partners, Hanoi National University of Education, Western Philippines University, Universitas Nasional, and the University of Malaya, as well as 3 research institutes in the United Kingdom, universities of Plymouth and Exeter and Plymouth Marine Laboratory, and 3 non-governmental organizations, the International Pole and Line Foundation, Blue Ventures, and North Devon Biosphere Foundation. We have built capacity and capability in the Southeast Asian region in interdisciplinary research. Instrumental to the research was the exchange and engagement with local practitioners and stakeholders at all levels. These have provided evidence and data to support the development, implementation, and management of the sustainable use of marine resources in these regions. So through sharing information via different channels and media, such as training workshops and seminars, policy briefs, and educational materials, as well as communicating through artistic media and music, we have enabled multiple stakeholders from grassroots to policymakers in regional, state, and community levels to engage with and understand the importance of a sustainable approach to marine management. Ultimately, all of this is for the benefit of the health, well-being, food security, and livelihoods of these coastal communities. So through an interdisciplinary approach of combining both natural and social sciences, the research conducted by the international partners has enabled the teams to identify and analyze the multiple uses and users of the marine environment. The research has been conducted through a collection of 12 interconnected and integrated sub-projects, which includes methods such as evidence synthesis, computer modeling to assess the potential impacts of climate change, identification and classification of the provision of ecosystem services by marine habitats, the assessment of human health and well-being benefits, as well as the risks of living by the coasts, satellite Earth observation approaches, assessment of potential renewable energy sources, as well as systematic scenario planning. So this is quite a broad and very convoluted program, but by qualifying and quantifying the habitats and ecosystems that provide services to society, we have been able to apply tools to identify the trade-offs and establish the rationale for use of marine space in these 4 case studies. Meanwhile, it has been an integral part of the research to engage with and take into account the needs of these multiple stakeholders and consider their challenges. Marine spatial planning can be a very useful way to gather information and provide evidence to assist and coordinate decision-making for a sustainable future. Thank you for this opportunity. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vicky, for that very comprehensive and insightful intervention of multidisciplinary collaboration at regional and international levels. In the interest of time, I'll go very quickly to the next panelist then. So our second panelist, whom I have the pleasure to introduce, is Dr. Frida Siddiq. She's a mangrove ecologist focusing on mangrove conservation and climate change. She was senior researcher at the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries and currently works at the National Research and Innovation Agency. She is actively involved in international collaborations and networks, including IUCN Mangrove Specialist for Southeast Asian Mangrove Ecosystem Networks, the International Partnership of Blue Carbon, or IPBC, the Coral Triangle Initiative Climate Change Adaptation Working Group, and Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia Mangroves, or MALFINDO. She was also an adjunct fellow at the University of Queensland and a climate change fellow of ASEAN US Science and Technology Fellowship Program. She has produced many publications and contributed her work as reviewer and editor at high impact factor journals. Frida received her Bachelor of Science from the University of Sydney, Australia, and Master of Science from the University of Warwick, UK, and PhD from the University of Queensland, Australia. Her PhD focused on mangrove forest response to environmental change in Indonesia, which covers the issues of high sedimentation, sea level rise, blue carbon, and mangrove restoration. With that, I invite Dr. Frida to make her 5-minute intervention, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nora, for your introduction. Good afternoon for people in Southeast Asia, and good morning, bonjour, for the French and Europe participants. I'm Frida Siddiq, as Dr. Nora just introduced myself. Here, I would like to have like a very short intervention, I think. I would like to highlight about blue carbon and climate change, and how the things that can be included in the marine spatial planning. As we have heard from the previous keynote speaker, that MSP can be understood as a public process for organizing the use of marine space and pursuing social, economic, and ecological benefits. And it is important to involve scientists and stakeholders in establishing the marine spatial planning. And the marine protected areas can represent the marine spatial planning at lower level or smaller scale, perhaps, and while the MSP usually refers to a higher level process. We already know that the marine protected areas are part of an important conservation strategy for coastal and marine ecosystem, including mangrove. And for mangrove, not only NPA, the protected areas can be a Ramsar site. So here I would like to a bit highlighting about mangrove and other coastal vegetation ecosystem like seagrasses, because they are part of what's called the blue carbon ecosystem. In general, protected areas are usually divided into main groups. Can be like the strictly protected areas and sustainable use areas. So one of the categories of the sustainable use group is the extractive reserve, which can be used by the locals and also the stakeholders. And so we also need the participation of the local stakeholders in the management of the natural resources. Here we need what we call it the local knowledge when we want to serving out the marine spatial planning. So in terms of MPA, where mangrove are in protection category, there are challenges in including the marine spatial planning as a tool to harmonize different marine uses in mangrove protected area, including aquaculture and climate change adaptation. And nowadays, the importance of coastal ecosystem to climate change, or term as blue carbon, bring the MPA issue become more complex. So for example, despite the importance of mangrove ecosystem, there are still linkages in the implementation of spatial management in MPA. In our region, Indonesia, we can still find aquaculture practices or land converted to other use in protected areas, because the local claims that land maybe are owned by their family or ancestors, so we cannot do anything with that. So the degraded mangrove or mangrove loss in protected areas due to the land conversion give a big challenge in keeping MPA as a blue carbon sink. And here we are living in the region with extensive blue carbon ecosystem. So that's how the world, the global, give us more attention and give us like a hope to keep this blue carbon ecosystem. So there is a need to assess the status of the marine spatial planning in protected area that can help identify gaps and conservation needs in marine conservation. With the issue of blue carbon, marine spatial planning in protected area in the Southeast Asia will be challenging, but also could be the solution, the opportunities to address the conservation of blue carbon ecosystem. And several approaches can be used to highlight the need for rezoning of these areas, and also the diverse initiative strategies are also needed in the coastal and marine zone planning process, such as increased social participation and stakeholder inclusion in order to achieve the MPA management objective and to avoid the conflicts among the different sectors and their interests. So the effectiveness of the protected areas can be also boosted by creating a very productive network. I think that's my intervention. Thank you, Dr. Nora.
Thank you, Dr. Frida, for that interesting intervention on the importance of MSP, also for associated ecosystem of mangroves and seagrass as blue carbon, as well as involvement of stakeholders and climate impacts. So with that, I think we have reached the time for question and answers. How many minutes do we have, Cheryl, for question and answers?
You've got, I noticed that some of the questions are already answered. Thanks, James, for that. That saves time. But you've got up to about just 10 minutes.
10 minutes, all right. So, okay, so there were several questions in the Q&A already answered. Thank you very much. So there is one hot question. So it's from Mazlan Manav. The question reads, what does everyone think about the plan to reclaim land and build an airport on Pulau Tioman? It is an MPA, isn't it? Will it have a major environmental impact? Should it be allowed to proceed? So who would like to answer this from among the speakers and panelists if they are aware of this plan? Anybody?
I'm not, sorry, I'm not aware specifically of the proposal. I don't know the place, but I know about the impact of this kind of infrastructure. So this, there are some general guidelines that can be provided independently in which place of the world is proposed. So if the space is a protected area, it shows that there's already high ecological values and ecological and social values also, because we tend to put a focus on the revenues coming from classical developments and not so much on the revenues that we have been having for centuries and millennia. So I think those kinds of things need to be very well measured. What is true is that land reclamation, it's always having a very, very strong impact. And we need to measure in terms of surface that is going to be transformed from ecosystems to the new building of the airport. But we also need to consider the additional impact of moving more people to the island, and what will be the impact of those people, what those people will require in terms of buildings to host them, because we will have more facilities to arrive to the island. So we need to look at the impacts at different levels, from the immediate impact of the infrastructure and the additional impacts of changing the capacity of the island to host people, and also in terms of carbon emissions of the world itself, but also the additional people moving with more flights. So I think this has classical environmental impact assessments and strategic impact assessments methodologies that I would suggest that this should be the first issue to do before saying if it's acceptable or it's not acceptable. So that's what I can say. And I work a lot on this kind of infrastructure developments in my country, in the Mediterranean, and in other areas. So there are specificities, but common issues that has to be always analyzed. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Puri. Maybe Dr. Puri and Mr. Mazlan can get together and discuss this further for the details. So I see some comments and some questions in the chat box. Can they speak, Cheryl? If not, then I'll read out no, they cannot. Okay. So, okay, I'll read out the comments by Julian RCM. I suppose that's Reef Check Malaysia. Hello, Julian. Construction of the airport will severely damage the marine ecosystems around the island. It is contrary to recent efforts to improve marine conservation and hold biodiversity laws. Socially, it is unpopular. It goes against IPLC trends. Thank you, Julian, for that comments. Then the next one, we have Siu Lin Wong. But of course, if anybody, the panelists or the speakers who would like to add some more, please do. Siu Lin Wong wrote, getting marine coastal protected area networks to work involves, among other things, getting different state and national governments to work together. What are some of the key challenges and solutions? So, okay, this is, I suppose, addressed to any of the speakers and panelists who would like to take up this question.
I might add, oh, sorry, Mary's got her hand up. Yes, absolutely. It's very important to really have a good analysis of which governments, which policymakers, who are the key players who are involved with management. And sometimes these are overlapping and sometimes there are gaps. And you need to identify who is responsible for which parts of the decision making. So that's one of the challenges, is to ensure that all aspects are covered. And solutions are to ensure that all of those decision makers are brought to the table, and all of their objectives and their perspectives are taken into account. I'll pass over to Dr. Canal to speak as well.
Right, thank you, Dr. Vicky. Dr. Canal, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think that I can contribute with some experiences on that, because I was at the beginning of the creation of the Mediterranean Network of Marine Protected Areas Managers, MEDPAN, that was just launched initially by 9 marine protected areas. And now we have more than 100 with actors from 21 countries around the Mediterranean. And probably you know that the Mediterranean is not the best example of a peaceful region, have a lot of conflicts. And obviously this is reflected as well on the governance of the marine protected areas. So what I can say is just to reinforce what Dr. Cheung said, it is the importance to avoid overlapping, to identify what is already done by the different actors in the region. Some of them are going to be regional, others are going to be national or subnational sometimes, if the competences are done at subnational level. So to identify who is doing what and what is not done, but this really is really necessary. And probably the first work of a network is to fill these gaps. And so those gaps allow to connect the different actors. One element that is a challenge, but is also an opportunity, is the diversity of actors that are involved on marine protected areas. And you need to be flexible enough to allow for each one to find the place. And the model for management, the model for having agencies of marine protected areas in each country is not the same. So, for instance, the model in Spain is very split with different subnational governance. In France, there is a very strong national agency dealing with this in the context of the biodiversity agency. So in Italy, each MPA has more freedom than in other areas. If you go to North Africa, all are under the same classical ministerial structure. So there's a lot of diversity. So when you work in a network, you need to accept this and find a way to allow each one to contribute, having very clear targets in terms especially to deliver actions on the ground, which is what at the end matters, how the marine protected areas increase their capacity to do a better management. So those are a few things. I will be glad if you have more time, or in the future you can contact me, because this is one of the aspects that we want also to, through this component 3, I was talking of exchanges between the Atlantic region and Southeast Asia. We want to bring those experiences, but also learn from very nice networks, for instance, with locally managed marine areas in Southeast Asia. They are very nice examples that it can be also of interest for the Atlantic or the Mediterranean people. So these exchanges can really help, and I will be glad to contribute. Thanks.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Puri. Yes, I think this learning exchanges is great. And I think at some point we can get both of them to be connected, right? So, okay. So I see a few more questions in the chat box very quickly. We have only a few minutes left, right? So Cheryl, you just let me know if our time is up, but I think we can.
Dr. Nora, maybe we can go for one last question. Thank you.
One last question, okay. Next in the chronological order is a question by Nazri Khalid. Hi everyone, Nazri Khalid here, distinguished fellow at MIMA, adjunct professor at UMT and Taylor University. I'd like to know from our European friends whether the pandemic in terms of its economic, geopolitical and movement restriction impacts, and to a certain extent, wait, it's moving. The protectionist posturing adopted by governments to curb its spread has adversely affected MSP efforts in EU and setback initiatives related thereto. So, all right, so he's asking European friends. So who would like to take up this question, please? Right, Dr. Puri again, please.
Sorry to take the floor again, but
it's all right.
I think I'm the only, well, at least I'm from Europe for sure. So it's certainly the pandemic has created a bad impact in general in all the protected areas. So the first weeks, everybody was happy because some species were approaching most to the humans and just start going back. And this is also true. Let's say this is a positive, but immediately came the negative. For instance, the amount of infractions of vulnerations of law and the capacity to enforce was decreased. So there was a lot of uses that were not should not have been permitted, and this has had a very, very bad impact. Illegal fishing, for instance, illegal harvesting of different products of the sea. This happened everywhere. So obviously it's not the same in each country and in each region, but in general terms, the pandemic had a very negative impact. And then in terms of pollution, just the number of masks that you can find underwater today in the Mediterranean, for instance, that's the place I can see very easily. It's amazing. So yeah, no, the first was an illusion that the pandemic helps nature. In fact, when management decreases, nature have bigger, lower capacity to be conserved and to be protected. So I will say that is mainly negative.
Right. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Puri. As we can see, Europe also faces problem, also with challenges with MSP. So I think we're running out of time for question and answer. Is that correct, Cheryl? Because I see a hand up also.
If it's just a quick one, Chris, I think we can allow it, but that would be the last one.
The very last.
Thank you very much. I can be very quick. Just to add to what Puri said there, and obviously I can touch on it in the next panel. But with regards to the restrictions and the pandemic on the MSP process in general, obviously our role at the assistance mechanism is to track the progress of implementation of the MSP directive in the EU. And actually, a lot of the member states reported to us that the restrictions in meetings and travel actually delayed the necessary public consultation and cross-border consultation process of MSP. So we saw a very visible delay in some of the MSP processes just for this very the simple reason of these physical restrictions.
Right. Thank you very much for that last question and last answer. Yes, the pandemic, whatever. Challenges are all over. If EU also faces all these challenges, what about us in Southeast Asia? So, and from the presentations, we also saw that cooperation is very important, and so is capacity building. to ensure effective management as well as successful MSP implementation. So perhaps in the next sessions, we will look at further presentations that could answer some of these challenges. Thank you. So I give it back to Cheryl. Oh, sorry, to Valerie.
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Sharifa, thank you very much to all the participants, to the panelists. I guess it was a really amazing session, and we could see there was a number of questions that couldn't be directly addressed. But as we said, all of these subjects are also connected, so we're going to be coming back through them. So please stay with us. So right now, what's going to happen? We're going to have another group picture because a few of you did not arrive on time earlier on. So we'll please, you can switch on your cameras again and give us another beautiful smile. It will just take a second, and then we can have a break. But just bear with me a little while so I can tell you what's going to happen during the break. So I can see everyone is turning their cameras on. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if it's Chris, Jose, could also Monica. Just turn them on for a short while. Thank you so much. I think we're almost there. Yes. Okay then. Ready. One. So let's go. You know the drill. 1, 2, 3, and smile. And let's do that again just in case. 1, 2, 3, and smile. Voila, thank you so much. So right now we're gonna have a little break. It's a 10-minute break, but if you're interested in staying around your computer, we're gonna show you a video. So as part of an ongoing partnership between Malaysia and the European Union, the delegation of the EU to Malaysia has produced a series of documentaries on the impacts of climate change and what we can do about it. So in this first video, which is called Ocean Treasures, you're gonna learn more about this subject. And please just keep it showing while we take a quick break, and we will see you back in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
The ocean, the heart of our planet. It covers 2/3 of the Earth's surface, generates 70% of the oxygen we breathe, and is home to 94% of all life. Hundreds of thousands of incredible marine species live and flourish in its waters, and for all the species in the world, it's a source of life.
Ocean is very important because it covers 70% of the Earth's surface, and our climate and weather patterns. It kind of reset the state or the conditions of our Earth climate, and also it absorbs more than 50 times of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and also provide economic benefits to the people. Important for global trade in terms of the marine transportation or shipping industry. Ocean also produce food, like seafood, for example. From the ocean, we can also get medicines that can cure Alzheimer's, heart diseases, and overcome cancer amongst the people. So that are the benefit of the oceans.
Warning about climate change is reaching Malaysian shores.
A southwardly moving oil slick may pose a danger to marine life along coastal areas near Perak.
A dead turtle was found in Pulau Tioman covered in oil believed to be residue from the collision between a US warship and a merchant vessel in the waters of Johor.
Right now, we are facing a crisis. Yes, a crisis. Every moment of every day, our ocean is being ravaged. Natural habitats are contaminated and ecosystems debilitated, causing thousands of species to disappear before our very eyes. We plunder and pollute the ocean for our excessive needs and wants. We drag tons of life out of the waters for our consumption. We throw tons of garbage and waste for our convenience. We destroy the environment that sustains life for trillions of amazing sea creatures, and for ourselves. Mass extinction of sea life devastates entire food chains. Pollution poisons the waters and creatures with toxins and microplastics that enter our bodies when we consume sea products. We depend on the ocean far more than we realize. Changes in the ocean cause chains of effect on land environments too, on our cities, on our homes. Rising temperatures cause rising sea levels and other unprecedented weather catastrophes like devastating floods, thunderstorms, and hurricanes. We would lose our sustenance, impacting our homes and destroying our planet. Fortunately, we've already begun the efforts to undo the damage.
The European Union and Malaysia have a long history of working together for the well-being of people and the protection of the environment we all live in. Our partnership in preserving our oceans is a fundamental pillar of this cooperation. It is paramount, therefore, that the European Union and Malaysia work strategically to create a more sustainable way of looking after the oceans and marine habitats conservation by embarking on initiatives that will benefit both all of humanity and Mother Nature.
The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea creates and enforces laws that help regulate human activities that affect ocean environments, with the EU's dispute settlement mechanism supporting their efficacy in moderating the most harmful practices like overfishing and pollution. National ocean parks are being developed in many countries to protect marine areas from human interference. The EU, ASEAN, and other countries are all working together to implement conservation and ocean management measures, while NGOs work with local communities to adopt better fishing and general ocean practices. International cooperation is crucial in leading us towards a more sustainable future. Partnerships across borders are essential towards a restored ocean. It's up to us to work together through campaigns like the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy to address the problem fundamentally and holistically. This campaign employs 7 points of focus, including ocean governance, which brings to life vital efforts like increasing EU support for fisheries management in Indo-Pacific countries. One such partnership is the EU partnership with WWF Malaysia, which establishes a conservation effort to preserve and maintain ocean habitats such as coral reefs and mangroves, as well as wildlife species. The blue economy is a great component to tackle what damage has been done. It emphasizes a sustainable use of ocean resources for economic and sociological points, while preserving the Earth's ecosystem.
The blue economy concept has emerged decades ago. It refers to the ocean-based economic model, which employs sustainable technologies and infrastructure to secure growth or economic while securing the oceans. It involves all aspects, social, economic, governance, environment. So this blue economy is a good approach to conserve the ocean while not neglecting the community that gain their livelihoods from the oceans. You start with small action, because small is always beautiful. So at your level, you reduce the usage of the water. Secondly, you reduce your kitchen waste or your daily waste so that it didn't go to the landfill and will pollute the ocean. So if you go to the city or you go to the shopping mall, you reduce the plastic usage. Or if you want to buy food, bring your own food container so that this plastic will not pollute the ocean. Secondly, you don't do overfishing. For recreational purposes, you should practice catch and release so that the fish can grow and can breed. And lastly, maybe you can volunteer. That is the least thing you can do, because you say that I don't have anything to contribute. So contribute your energy and your time. You should start to love the oceans. Once you start love the ocean, you will feel responsible for it. So whenever you go to the ocean, or whenever you see what effort has been done to help the ocean, you have to take part. And this must be shared with your family, with your children, so that they can also have the same thinking as yours.
It's easy to think that our vast oceans are infinite, that with so much to give, it would keep on giving forever. But it's up to us to preserve our oceans with our actions and our choices, not just for ourselves, but for our future.
Let us work hand in hand towards the conservation of our oceans for the generations to come. Happy World Oceans Day.